In an age where we can map the genome, send spacecraft beyond the solar system, and manipulate atoms to build quantum computers, we still struggle to sit quietly with ourselves for more than a few minutes. We can observe the birth of galaxies light years away, but we flinch at the idea of observing our own minds. Here we are, technologically omnipotent, but emotionally fragmented. We are explorers of outer space, but strangers to our inner space. That paradox should stop us in our tracks. Because what good is a GPS if we've lost our internal compass? What's the point of connecting to the cloud if we've lost connection to each other? And in a universe as vast as ours, in which you, me, and the hydrogen in our bones were all born in the hearts of collapsing stars, how can we justify living in a state of fear, division, or judgment? The question isn't whether a new Earth is possible, it's whether we're ready to make it happen. When people talk about the idea of a new Earth, it might sound idealistic, even mythical. Imagine a world where peace isn't something we negotiate for, but the default setting, where humanity shifts from competition to collaboration. It's not just about understanding the science of life, it's about living in harmony with that science. This is not some far-off fantasy, it's a real potential. And when you study physics, you learn that potential energy isn't just an abstract concept. It's the energy that builds up when a rock sits at the top of a hill. Once that rock starts moving, it has the power to change everything in its path. The shift to a new Earth won't happen because of some divine intervention or cosmic miracle. It's going to come from us, and more specifically, from the changes we're willing to make in our own behavior. In physics, we know that change doesn't occur from nowhere. If you want movement, you need to remove friction. If you want acceleration, you have to release the things holding you back. Evolution, both biological and conscious, isn't just about adding more. It's about shedding the old, letting go of what no longer serves us. The world we live in now is like an outdated system running on old software. It's shaped by unchecked ego, tribal instincts that no longer serve us in a globalized world, and the inertia of unexamined beliefs. Just as a spacecraft needs to jettison its boosters to break free from Earth's gravity, we too need to shed the weight, whether it's old habits, outdated ideologies, or behaviors that keep us stuck in the same loops, facing the same problems over and over again. So, what are the forces that drag us down in our own minds? What are the gravitational pulls that hold us back from reaching a higher state of existence? Let's break it down. The first, and perhaps the most subtle, is the victim mindset. Now, it's important to recognize that suffering is real, injustice is real, pain is part of being human. But there's a difference between experiencing hardship and adopting a mindset that keeps you trapped in a cycle of blame, resentment, and disempowerment. In astrophysics, a black hole is an object so dense that not even light can escape its pull. Similarly, the victim mindset works in the same way. It absorbs our energy, our attention, and our potential, but it gives us nothing in return but a story that says, I am powerless. The world is happening to me, not through me. But the new Earth doesn't work that way. In this new paradigm, personal agency is the core principle. Just as gravity bends space-time because of mass, the new Earth represents a shift in collective experience. Driven by individuals who are awake and aware, these are the people who understand that their thoughts aren't just reflections of reality, they actively shape it. Imagine if Einstein had encountered the anomalies in Newtonian mechanics at high speeds and simply accepted them, saying, well, that's just how things are. We wouldn't have relativity or quantum mechanics or the Hubble Space Telescope. Progress doesn't happen through repeating the past. It happens through asking bold questions, through challenging what we think we know. The same goes for us. Next, let's talk about judgment not from a moral perspective, but as a matter of pattern recognition. The human brain is a prediction machine. It categorizes, evaluates, and ranks a survival trait that's been evolving for hundreds of thousands of years. The same mechanism that helped our ancestors avoid poisonous berries now gets applied to something far more complex: other human beings. We judge others, their choices, their appearances, their emotions, and in doing so, we reinforce the illusion that we are separate. It's like trying to observe a distant galaxy through a smudged lens. The image you get is distorted, not the true picture. Judgment clouds our perception, and in a universe where all matter is connected through a quantum field, where entanglement suggests particles can mirror each other across vast distances, it's both ironic and unfortunate that we continue to emphasize our differences. In the new Earth, judgment makes way for curiosity. Instead of labeling, we ask questions. Instead of condemning, we seek connection. We realize that all consciousness is a reflection of the same underlying energy showing itself through different experiences. Your reality isn't a threat to mine, it's a new facet of what it means to be human. Let's move on to the next barrier, competition. Now, competition isn't inherently bad. In physics, tension leads to release, and that release can be productive. But what happens when competition becomes the constant driving force? When it's the default setting for our civilization? We end up in a world obsessed with hierarchy, with comparison constantly measuring value in likes, money, or status. But here's the thing, in the natural world, evolution isn't just about the strongest surviving. It's about cooperation. It's about symbiosis. Ecosystems thrive not because one species dominates, but because each species contributes in its own unique way. But here's the thing. In the natural world, evolution isn't just about the strongest surviving, it's about cooperation. Symbiosis. Ecosystems thriving not because one species dominates, but because each contributes in its own way. If Earth itself is a living organism, what some systems theorists call a superorganism, then our constant drive to outdo each other is like one organ in a body trying to outcompete the others. This only creates dysfunction, not progress. The new Earth invites us to shift from competition to contribution, from scarcity to abundance, from me against you to us together. In space, there is no single center. Every point is the center from its own perspective. And so it is with consciousness. We don't need to outshine each other. We need to learn how to shine together. Despite all this, many still hold on to the drama of conflict. Which brings us to the next thing we must stop doing, participating in cycles of division and war, even if only in our minds. Most people would say they're not violent, they haven't fought in a war, they avoid confrontation. But war doesn't begin with weapons. It starts in the mind. It starts with the belief that someone else is the enemy, that someone else's existence is a threat to yours, whether it's on a battlefield or behind a screen. That mindset doesn't align with the new Earth. Conflict is entropy. It consumes energy and reduces complex systems to chaos. Peace, on the other hand, is order, not the forced order of control, but the natural order that emerges when systems are in balance. Just like galaxies form elegant spirals when gravitational forces are in harmony, societies thrive when compassion overpowers fear. In the new Earth, peace isn't just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of coherence. But coherence requires energy, and energy is finite, especially when it's wasted on emotional reactions, attachments, and distractions. This brings us to another crucial habit to release, clinging to attachments. As Carl Sagan once said, we are star stuff contemplating the stars, but somewhere along the way, we became star stuff clinging to things, our cars, our jobs, our identities. We confuse possessions with purpose, roles with essence. In astrophysics, nothing is permanent. Stars burn out, planets drift away, black holes eventually evaporate. The only constant in the universe is change. To resist change is to resist the very fabric of existence. Attachment isn't just emotional, it's energetic. It keeps you anchored to a past frequency, preventing you from attuning to a higher one. Evolution is a process of shedding the old to make room for the new. Just like a rocket must release stages to break free of Earth's gravity, we too must let go of outdated ideas, habits, and attachments to move forward. In biology, this is called adaptation, the ability to evolve based on the environment around us. Yes, the new Earth is waiting, but it won't come for those who try to carry old baggage with them. If the earlier shifts were about shedding outdated mindsets, this next one is about reclaiming something even more fundamental, your attention. In today's world, distraction has become one of the most powerful forms of control. We often think of power as something concentrated in governments, corporations, or wealth. But true power lies in where you direct your attention. In today's digital age, your attention has become the most valuable currency. Every click, every scroll, every algorithmic recommendation isn't just feeding data, it's redirecting your consciousness. In astrophysics, we know that the observer effect tells us that simply observing a phenomenon can alter its outcome. The same applies to your attention. Where you focus your mind, you amplify, you give it energy, you give it gravity. So if your attention is constantly being hijacked by the next notification, the latest trend, or the loudest voice, you're no longer in control. You're just a passenger. And the new Earth doesn't need more passengers. It needs captains who steer the ship. That's why stepping back from distractions isn't about rejecting technology or living without it. It's about engaging with it consciously. It's about asking, is this shaping me, or am I shaping it? Are my thoughts my own, or just echoes of the noise around me? Just as a telescope has to be finely tuned to capture the faintest light from distant stars, we too must tune our minds to perceive the quiet guidance of our intuition, that subtle signal hidden in the noise of daily life. And this signal, this intuition, is not some mystical force. It's evolutionary. It's the product of millions of years of neural development designed not to entertain us, but to guide us. The new Earth is accessed not by accumulating more information, but by cultivating better discernment. Discernment about what we consume, what we believe, and who we become along the way. And that leads us to another barrier, perhaps the most significant one: unhealed emotional trauma. Even in astrophysics, we understand that energy doesn't just vanish, it transforms. This is known as the law of conservation of energy. In the universe, nothing truly disappears. It changes form, just as our experiences, challenges, and growth are constantly reshaping us. The same is true for pain. If we don't process it, it doesn't vanish. It becomes embedded. It echoes. It distorts. Traumas, whether personal or generational, act like gravitational anomalies in the mind. They warp our emotional trajectory, pulling us back into reactive patterns long after the original event is over. We think we're choosing freely, but often we're just looping through unresolved fear, through suppressed anger, through inherited wounds disguised as personality traits. In a universe where even black holes can slowly evaporate through Hawking radiation, surely we can begin the process of emotional release not by ignoring our pain, but by confronting it with compassion and clarity. Healing is essential for our collective evolution. Just like a spacecraft needs to shed excess weight to reach space, humanity must release old emotional baggage to evolve. If we carry the weight of outdated beliefs or unresolved trauma, we'll never be able to move forward. The physics of growth just don't work that way. The frequency is out of alignment. To heal is not to forget. It is to reframe, to recognize that the story you tell yourself is not the only possible version, that the meaning you gave to pain can be revised not to invalidate the hurt, but to reorient the trajectory of your growth. Because ultimately, the new Earth is not some distant utopia. It's a new way of thinking, a shift in how we interact with the world. It's about aligning our actions with the fundamental principles of physics and evolution, not perfection, but a responsible way of living that reflects the truth of the universe. The responsibility to respond with presence instead of react with programming, and nothing triggers programming like unhealed pain. This is why your healing is not just personal, it is planetary. Every burden released is one less distortion in the collective field. And so when you combine all of these elements, the rejection of victimhood, the release of judgment, the transcendence of competition, the deactivation of conflict thinking, the detachment from material and emotional anchors, the conscious redirection of attention, and the dedication to healing, you begin to experience a gravitational shift, one that pulls you not toward escapism, but embodiment, not toward fantasy, but into a higher fidelity version of reality itself. The shift to the new Earth is not about ascending into the clouds. It's about anchoring light into the soil of your life. It's about grounding transcendence in daily decisions. Because the laws of the universe do not change for spiritual awakening. Thermodynamics still applies, entropy still pulls. But what does change profoundly is your relationship to these forces. You begin to see that entropy is not an enemy, but a sculptor. That resistance is not a wall, but a mirror. That the breakdown is, in fact, the breakthrough seen through a lens refined by consciousness. In quantum mechanics, particles behave differently when observed. That's not magic, that's a reminder. A reminder that consciousness isn't a spectator sport. It's an active participant in shaping what's real. So if enough of us begin to observe, really observe ourselves, our reactions, our stories, our impact, the very field of human reality begins to shift. Slowly at first, then exponentially, until one day, what once seemed impossible, a peaceful, united, intelligent civilization, is no longer a dream, but a baseline. You are not small in this process. You are not irrelevant. You are not some accidental observer on a pale blue dot. You are, as Sagan said, a way for the cosmos to know itself. But that knowing isn't automatic. It requires intention, attention, and evolution. So the next time you feel the urge to scroll without thinking, to judge without context, to react without reflection, remember, you're not just living on Earth. You are shaping it. You are tuning its frequency through your thoughts, choices, and behaviors. The new Earth is not a timeline you wait for. It's a signal you answer. It's strange, isn't it? How we can measure the age of the universe, track the decay of subatomic particles, and yet still struggle to let go of a conversation from last week. We've harnessed gravitational waves to detect the collisions of black holes, but some of us can't stop replaying old arguments that no longer serve us. It's a paradox worth reflecting on. The human capacity to explore the vastest scales of the cosmos while remaining emotionally trapped by the smallest fractures in our lives. But here's the truth. What holds you back is not the event itself, but your attachment to it. In physics, we call this inertia, the resistance of any object to change its state of motion. And humans, we are masterful at emotional inertia. We keep carrying weight that no longer has mass. We repeat patterns long after their relevance has expired. Not because we enjoy them, but because we've mistaken familiarity for safety. To shift into the new Earth, we must confront this paradox. We must learn how to release without losing, to detach without becoming indifferent. Just as a rocket drops its external boosters to achieve escape velocity, we too must drop the emotional payloads that served a purpose once but are now dragging us back into orbits of repetition. And perhaps nothing binds us more tightly to the old paradigm than the unconscious fear of the unknown. We speak often of freedom, freedom to choose, to speak, to live, but few acknowledge that freedom also means letting go of control, of narrative, of certainty, and uncertainty to the human psyche is terrifying. Yet if there is one constant across all scientific inquiry, from particle physics to astrophysics, it is this: uncertainty is the birthplace of discovery. In fact, Heisenberg formalized it. The more precisely you know the position of a particle, the less you can know its momentum, and vice versa. The universe is, at its core, an unfolding mystery. And so are you. When you fear uncertainty, you fear your own becoming. And when you resist uncertainty, you also resist possibility. You resist innovation. You resist evolution. The new Earth isn't a polished utopia where every answer is known. It's a higher frequency sandbox of potential where we're not afraid to not know, because we trust our capacity to learn, to evolve, to adapt. So if you're waiting for the moment when you feel ready, know this: readiness is a myth. Growth happens in motion. It's not clean. It's not linear. It's entropic, dynamic, unpredictable, and beautifully so. Think of a star being born. It begins as a chaotic collapse, pressure mounting, matter swirling, instability everywhere, until suddenly fusion ignites and light emerges. That chaos wasn't failure, it was preparation. The same applies to you. Your discomfort is not the absence of transformation, it's the early stage of it. The shedding of your former structure to make room for a new alignment. And you mustn't wait for the world to approve this shift. The new Earth doesn't operate by consensus. It's not a democratic vote. It's a resonance field. You either match it or you don't. And to match it, you must be willing to disappoint the old world. That means turning down the volume on societal scripts that tell you who to be. Scripts designed not for your expansion, but for your predictability. These scripts reward conformity, not creativity. They sell comfort, not truth. But the cosmos is not interested in your comfort. It is interested in your expansion, in your participation in its unfolding. Because you, human being, are not separate from the cosmos. You are its latest expression, and when you expand intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, you do not escape the laws of physics. You embody them. You become more coherent, more ordered, more radiant, like matter collapsing into a star, or consciousness organizing into clarity. And clarity in this new Earth is not perfection, it is authenticity. It is the courage to align what you believe, what you feel, and what you do, to be internally congruent, even if externally misunderstood, because the new Earth isn't for those who fit in, it's for those who tune into truth, to presence, to what is deeply real beneath all the noise. So when someone asks, what does it mean to shift into the new Earth? The answer is simple. It means showing up as someone who no longer contributes to the gravitational pull of the old. It means you stop feeding systems that thrive on fear. You stop energizing identities that depend on suffering. You stop equating productivity with worth. And you begin, in small but seismic ways, to reclaim the sacred act of conscious living. That's the revolution, not with fire, not with weapons, but with frequency. A civilization evolves not when its laws change, but when its values do. When its citizens no longer outsource their power to external authorities, whether political, religious, or algorithmic, but begin to operate from an internal compass calibrated to empathy, to logic, to love. Yes, love. A word so overused that we forget its scientific weight, because love isn't just a feeling, it's a force, a binding agent in the social fabric, a form of gravitational coherence between hearts and minds. When you act from love, you reduce entropy in the human field, you bring order, you amplify connection. And in systems theory, that kind of coherence has a name: emergence. It's when the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. That's the new Earth, not a new planet, but a new pattern. A new field of emergence built from old elements arranged in new ways, built from us. Because the universe doesn't upgrade through lightning bolts or apocalyptic resets. It upgrades when enough nodes in the system, enough humans, begin to function with greater complexity, compassion, and clarity. That's how neural networks learn, that's how galaxies form, and that's how civilizations evolve. So, what does this all mean practically, personally, cosmically? It means that the new Earth doesn't emerge through a singular event. It emerges like a new star system forming from the dust of old ones. Slowly, silently, through intention, through structure, through collapse and rebirth. You don't build a new Earth by waiting for the world to change. You build it by becoming the kind of human the future needs now. A human who no longer tolerates war within themselves and therefore cannot project war onto others. A human who understands that the real battlefield is within, where ego battles presence, where fear battles love, and where reaction battles responsibility. A human who understands that every thought, every decision, every action is a form of architecture. You are laying down energetic bricks for the kind of world you will inhabit. The only question is, are you building a prison or a launch pad? Because no technology, no system, no ideology will save a humanity that refuses to evolve emotionally. You can colonize Mars, upload your consciousness to the cloud, and manipulate the very code of life. But if you're still addicted to control, blame, fear, judgment, and status, then you're just exporting the same dysfunction to a new frontier. It's not enough to go to space. We have to grow into it. And that starts with how we treat ourselves, each other, and this pale blue dot we call home. So if you want to shift, really shift, stop looking up for miracles and start looking in for patterns. Where do you betray yourself in the name of acceptance? Where do you outsource your inner authority to outer noise? Where do you cling to stories that were written by someone else for a version of you that no longer exists? Those are the real locks. And the key, it's not hidden in a text or encoded in a prophecy. It's already in your hand if you're willing to use it. Because evolution isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens through you. When you stop replaying, stop reacting, stop running, and finally decide to respond with awareness, the new Earth isn't a fantasy. It's a potential, a shift in how we relate to the universe around us. Just like particles aligning in quantum states, we have the potential to shift our collective consciousness toward a higher level of cooperation and understanding. But that alignment doesn't come through hope. It comes through discipline, through practice, through letting go again and again until your being becomes a tuning fork for truth. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to be perfect. The new Earth doesn't require enlightenment. It requires participation, contribution, a sincere commitment to become more coherent today than you were yesterday, to subtract distortion, to refine perception, to live as if the world you want is already here, because in a very real sense it is. It's encoded in the quantum field. It's written into your DNA. It's reflected in every act of kindness, every courageous conversation, every moment of presence. It's not in the future. It's in your next decision. You see, we've spent centuries trying to conquer the external world, but the final frontier isn't out there. It's in here in the inner terrain of the human spirit. The real shift is not from Earth to new Earth. It's from unconscious to conscious, from fragmented to whole, from mechanical survival to meaningful emergence. And when enough of us make that shift, not in theory, but in practice, reality changes. It has to, because consciousness doesn't just observe the universe, it participates in it. And participation is the gateway to power. So ask yourself, what are you still holding that no longer vibrates with who you're becoming? What thought, what habit, what attachment is still anchoring you to the old frequency? And what would happen if you let it go, not as a sacrifice, but as a release, like shedding a skin that has finished its purpose, like a caterpillar dissolving in its cocoon, not knowing the blueprint of wings is already written in its cells? That's what this shift is. Not the acquisition of something new, but the revelation of something ancient within you, a remembering, a return to coherence, to contribution, to cosmic citizenship. Because you're not just a person on this planet. You are this planet in motion, becoming aware of itself. And in that awareness, you are powerful, not because you dominate, but because you align. Not because you know everything, but because you're willing to question what you've always believed. Not because you have the loudest voice, but because your actions now echo into a future far bigger than you can imagine. The new Earth doesn't need more noise. It needs more signal, more clarity, more truth tellers, bridge builders, frequency holders, architects of the unseen. And if you've heard this message, not just with your ears, but with your whole being, then you already are one of them. Not because it was written in the stars, but because you're willing to remember that the stars were written in you. So rise gently, clearly, consciously, and shift.